Hi, I'm Radical Liberation, self-declared King of the Moon, coming to you from St. Louis, Missouri, United States of America. We also have with us the Mad Mercenary from somewhere in Australia.
Hello.
And we have Miki the IV, who is not just talking about the Czech Republic, but is, I'm suspecting, actually located in the Czech Republic. Is that correct? Yeah, I thought so. Thanks, Miki, for being our special guest. And Miki's going to be the star of the show. But first, let's see. What do we want to talk about? Just mention Academic Agents course on economics, which we usually mention, very relevant to the show. We do have a deal in the show description. And he's got this logic course now, which might also be of interest because people who are not logical drive economists crazy. So don't be one of those people. And then we have ways you can support the show through Bitcoin or Subscribestar. And we have a Discord community, which grows regularly. I just saw it said, when I was sending the announcement out, it said, you're about to send this to over 500 people. I'm like, okay, it keeps getting bigger. So that's great. And we talk about all kinds of things in the Discord. Okay, so first topic actually is a little project that Mr. Mercenary has been working on. He has been doing some art. So here's a show logo, RL with, now the only thing that confused me about this is this doesn't look like a cigar. Usually it's like a cigar reference, Mad Merc. And this looks more like a cigarillo. It's like long and thin, you know?
Yeah, it's a work in progress, but we're going for this sort of simplistic, very professional looking design here. I'm going to work on the smoke a bit more. I don't particularly like that, but this is the basic outline of what I'm going for. I'm just trying to show people that, yes, we do have designs coming. We are working on this, or I'm working on this rather. So get ready for that. And this logo will be on pretty much every piece of merch. So if it's a t-shirt or if it's a jumper, it will be on the right or on the breast pocket. You know, it'll be like the professional little logo that we have there. So it's going to be very nice.
Cool. And then some people seem to have noticed that on our hobby farm, we have a few roosters. And so Mad Merc thought that might be something people associate with the show, I guess, right?
Yes. The coveted rooster that we keep seeing in chat and we keep hearing in the background. I thought, it's a bit of a part of the show now. So let's give it a bit of a credit where credit's due.
People like animals.
Exactly. It can become our mascot.
Yeah. And I do like that design. Okay, and then we've got the classic, so to speak.
So to speak, and
everyone to Hoppa.
Exactly. Everyone should know what that is from. If you don't, you need to go watch some Hoppa.
Yep. And it's such a thing that the metal rap band, Backwards, right? I think that's what they're called, has a little short instrumental called So to Speak. So there you go. It's even been memorialized in music. Will the rooster ever be a guest on the show? Someone says. Okay, so we're going to go from bottom to top on these, right? I really like what Mad Merc is playing around with here, and we got a number of variations. But see what you think, guys. Did we really win with the? I mean, I'm calling these the shattered icons or whatever. Is that how you think about them?
I think about these in the same way. So this will be, so I'm thinking about when we get our merch up, guys, different lines of merch. So there will be a different series or a different category of merch for every different thing. So the first one, the logo, the rooster, so to speak, they're more basic, more simple designs. You know, you can put those on a mug, or like I was talking about, you can put those in the breast pocket of a shirt. You know, it's very plain, it's very simple, it's very, people can look at it, oh, that's a very nice brand. I guess that's a high-end brand or something like that. Whereas these have more of a political bent, I guess the best word is. These are our shattered line, and this is more of a very much, if you want to have a bit more of an open statement about what you believe, and it asks a question, a very simple question, very, very basic question that has many implications to it. So, these are a bit more of a conversation style shirt. Or
I was going to say, that's exactly what I was thinking. Conversation starter. Yeah.
Yes. So this is
let's do more.
Did we really win?
And I have to say I'm biased already because I really like this one. This is really strong, I think.
Yes.
Okay, next. So this is the National Security Agency who watches the Watchmen.
Watches the Watchmen. Again,
excellent.
If you were to have this on a shirt or a jumper, even just on the back of it, you could be saying, okay, who does watch the Watchmen? And that actually provokes a little bit of thought in people's minds.
Yep, I like that. Excellent. Who prints your money? And this is Federal Reserve.
Yep, who prints your money? Again, very basic question with a lot of implications.
Yep. Do they represent you? United States Congress.
Yep. Again, same concept.
And
then the rest are kind of more variations that we're playing with.
I actually can't tell what's meant to be behind this one. Oh, is that the U.S.?
No, it's a shattered glass. I was just playing around and messing around with these ones. We don't really need to show them.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah. So anyway, the shattered things with the little question on them, very very cool. And I really like how the shatteredness, or whatever you want to call it, goes down into the words themselves. Who watches the Watchmen or whatever also looks kind of a little bit not hard to read, right? But just enough that people have to kind of give it a little more focus to read it.
Yes.
It looks cool, and I think it draws people in. So I really, really love these shattered designs.
Right. So if you like these designs, please give me a little bit of feedback. I have a new tab in the Discord that we have. Please go join the Discord. It's a lovely community. We help each other out. Lots of help, lots of advice there and help and whatever. I have a new tab called Merch Suggestions, which is under the Arts channel.
Yeah, got it. There we go.
Yep. All right. You can give me advice on... Now, here's the thing about the merch. And I'm going to try this out, guys. So don't flood me with stuff you want to see. But if there is enough demand for a design or a set of designs or a series or whatever, I will make them custom for you. So, nice. That way there is no, I wish he could do this. If you put a suggestion there and, it gets a certain amount of thumbs up or whatever, I'll make it for you. And I'll at you and say, hey, your design that you wanted is ready. When we get our merch going, I'll make custom designs for you guys. So if it sounds like something you want to buy, if it sounds like stuff you want to see, please use that tab. Also, if you just have stuff that you think would be good for the show merch-wise, let me know in that tab. So again, I am making custom merch for you guys. Other YouTubers, they just get some other art creator to make their art, and they have a certain series of designs. I am making custom stuff for you. So go in there, have a look.
Wow, that's very interesting. Okay, yeah, we're already getting a little bit of feedback in the chat, so make sure you read over that later or when you get a chance. Okay, cool. So let's switch topics. Thanks, everybody, for your feedback. Somebody's already in there. Oh, I guess I should take that down. Okay, yeah, now we're going to switch to something else, meta, about the show, and then we'll get into our main topic. So let's see. I need to do the browser, and we'll get the infinite effect. So get ready. Okay. So we're seeing new pipe now, right?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, Mad Merc, take it away. Oh, first of all, what are we doing? We're showing some different, some kind of alt tech platforms of various sorts, right?
Correct. We are showing alt tech platforms that we will be moving to. We will be setting up accounts on, apart from NewPipe, and I'll tell you why. All right, NewPipe is a YouTube extension. It is open source. It is probably the best YouTube extension I could find for you guys. Now, it's a little bit interesting to download, but don't worry, I have it on my phone. It's not it's not anything bad. It's pretty bloody good. In fact, you can customize your subscription list. There are no ads. There's no BS that YouTube gives you. It's pretty bloody good. And the user interface is really professionally done. So if you don't want to move off YouTube, but you don't want Susan and you don't want Google to keep watching you, use NewPipe. Get that downloaded on your phone or on your computer. Do that. All right. Next
okay,
one
wait, Matt Merck. I'm glad to hear about no ads, but are you saying that we wouldn't get those little warnings telling us, that the video has misinformation in it, and that the AP has told
like
us
that at all?
Oh my goodness! Well, how are we gonna know what is true and what is not true without that? Okay, so let's go to Entropy. I have never been to this site yet. What is it?
Oops, sorry. Entropy. All right. I have talked to Entropy devs before. Yes, the owners of this website. They are honest, good people. Really honest, good people. They will not kick us off. They have full intention of having it to be a free speech platform. So we will also be doing streaming there in the future. And hopefully, I'll discuss this with Vlad a bit more, but they have a monetization feature there. And they keep less of the money. So YouTube keeps about, I think it's like 2/3 of the money. On Entropy, it's something like 95% goes to us. So in the future, when we move over to Entropy, donate through Entropy, because more of the money goes to us, and those guys are honest and they're not big tech assholes. All right, cool. Next one.
So I'm excited about this because I understand that DLive has been kind of the main alternative for streaming, but they have been kicking people off, haven't they? That's what I heard.
Yes, DLive is DLive is going to kick everyone off eventually. They're going down the route of big tech, and we are not going to be on DLive. We're not going to deal with those problems to begin with. We're
just gonna skip that. Why waste our time, right? Okay, exactly. Now these next two are not streaming platforms, right?
No, these are video sharing platforms. So the rest, Library, Rumble, and BitChute at the moment are just they're just video sharing platforms, but we will be setting up accounts on those, and we will be using those. Use whichever one you like. All of our content will be on there. Radical Liberation, he has been downloading every episode for us, which has been very kind, so we can upload it to these platforms immediately. So look out for those. Create an account on one of those or all of those, I don't care, but make sure you're following us on those other platforms. And again, if you don't want to get off YouTube and you want to have the features of YouTube without the BS of YouTube, go to NewPipe. If you want to donate to us in future, go to Entropy. So that should make everything clear for everyone from now on.
All right, so Library, Rumble, BitChute. We do not have a pipeline yet. I have a channel on BitChute, but it was supposed to be automatically uploading the videos and it didn't work. So it stopped working. So I guess I'm gonna need to get a workflow where I am pushing these videos to each of these platforms and so forth. Ideally with a tool or something, or maybe with people helping. I don't know how we're gonna handle it, but okay. Thank you, Matt Merck, for taking the lead on that, because clearly big tech is not really interested in what we thought what it was going to be all about, which is, like implied in the name YouTube, right? It was going to be a chance for all of us to broadcast and have a big open conversation. Let it all hang out and let it all be in the light, and let us all just argue about things. But they seem to be backing off from that whole thing. And it's going to be, as I was saying, back to ABC, CBS, and NBC, which is what it was in the US when I was little. There were 3 main channels, and they were all like licensed by the government and everything. And there were laws about what they showed on TV and stuff, So basically they want that back as far as I can tell. Yeah. So, okay.
A few questions in the chat. Will library stuff automatically be on Odyssey? As far as I'm aware, yes. Does Entropy archive streams? As far as I'm aware, no.
Oh, Entropy is catch it while it's live only.
Catch it while it's live. But
Oh, wow.
again,
Okay.
the advantage of Entropy is that we keep more of the super chat, and they are a free speech platform.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, we have a guest. And
All
we have a
right.
presentation.
Hello.
Okay, yeah. So Miki the IV. Well, we've got to acknowledge, since he's actually with us. I've said it before, but while he's here, have to acknowledge and thank him for his amazing guerrilla marketing campaign. Mostly because of Miki, and also partially because I did a stream on my channel with my wife recently, and we're doing a part 2 of that for those who enjoyed part 1 this Saturday. But mostly because of Miki's guerrilla marketing, we are 25% up on subscribers in the last 28 days, and the channel's been around for over a year. So that's pretty impressive.
My pleasure.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive growth. So what Miki's been doing is he thought, well, you know, he didn't really stop giving us super chats, but in addition to doing that, he thought, well, maybe I'll use a couple of these super chats on other shows that have a good audience, kind of an adjacent audience, right? You didn't do this on like crazy communist shows.
Yes, I would personally deem it unethical to just spam your show absolutely everywhere. But if I caught, for example, Tim Pool talking about the justification by overpopulation, which is something you at the time just recently did a stream about. So I thought, well, I will recommend maybe this great channel. And turns out it jump-started like 700 subscribers or what?
Yeah, that's right. And bear in mind, we were 28 days ago, we had a little under 3,000, and now we're on our way to 4,000 in 28 days. So, you know, when you consider the size of the channel and the rate of growth and everything, it's really phenomenal what Miki's pulled off. So really smart guerrilla marketing. I'm kind of amazed that every super chat isn't just shilling someone's channel, because it's just the obvious thing to do. And no one seems to have thought of it. I don't know. But anyway, I don't remember like hardly ever hearing, maybe once or twice, I've seen a super chat like mentioning, oh, you should check this channel out or whatever. But generally, I haven't seen that. So I've
seen that when people did it with genuine interest in the person they were recommending, like really friendly advice. But I must admit, I'm kind of proud of my idea to weaponize it as organized marketing.
Yeah, weaponized. I like that. Guerrilla marketing, weaponized. It's war out there. Marketing is war. Okay. All right. Shall we bring the presentation up, Miki? Ready to go?
Well, I guess so.
Okay. So here's my sort of framing on this, which is that you know, the comments I shared in the show description and in the tweet promoting this, Miki, I think is right, which is the attention of the world was drawn to what was going on there with the end of communism, with, how do you say his name? Václav Havel?
Václav Havel.
Václav Havel. Yeah, Václav Havel, very famous, right? But then, well, as you'll get into, there were some things that happened that people kind of vaguely knew. They knew that Czechoslovakia broke up, but it wasn't the big mess that Yugoslavia breakup was. So it was sort of, it was sort of in the headline, and back out, right? Yeah. So the net result of all of this is that I would say for most of us, and that includes me, what's been going on in the Czech Republic since the end of communism is a bit of a blank page. And so I thought it'd be really interesting, especially as Miki started telling me a little bit about what's happened. It'd be really interesting to find out because, as I jokingly implied, you kind of might be left with the impression that, hey, the evil commies were destroyed by Václav Havel and everything's been going great in the Czech Republic ever since, right? And they lived happily ever after. But I am guessing that Miki's story is going to be slightly more complicated than that. Now, one more thing before you get going. This is, I don't know if you call this a shill. I don't make any money from it. But I have a piece that I was inspired with. It's kind of on nationalism, you might say, something like that. That I wrote 20 years ago when I was in the Czech Republic in Prague, and on LouRockwell.com, and I'm going to slip that into the chat once I can pull it up. But just wanted to mention, take a look at that link, and you'll see some of the ways that I was inspired by my visit to the Czech Republic. And for those who are into that sort of thing, you could say it's some early thoughts on nation and nationalism from Radlib from 20 years ago. So anyway, having said that, go ahead, sir.
Well, thank you. First of all, I would like to address the point of that you vaguely know that Czechoslovakia split up. In fact, I hear constantly Americans say Czechoslovakia still up to this day, so I don't think it's even common knowledge. But yes, so I am here to talk about what actually happened, and information that I will be sharing today is a combination of, let's say, information I got from old generations of my family, from narration of people, from general knowledge that is somewhat taught in schools, but not really, because our history stops basically in 45, and just that there isn't anything really taught thoroughly after that. And the most important thing, source of information, is probably journalist Kmenta, Jaroslav Kmenta, who I personally believe is probably the best journalist in the world, with the amazing job that he carried out in basically uncovering what happened during the last 30 years. With having said that, so let's get started. And what really happened? So first of all, we must actually understand how the quote-unquote revolution was carried out. Even though we call it revolution, well, Velvet Revolution, it had nothing to do with what you would usually imagine as a revolution, because authorities cooperated, and it was, as academic agent often puts it, as if you pushed into open door.
Right, and so in particular, what we did not see was a Ceausescu being put up against the wall and shot. There was really nothing like that, right?
Yes, sorry.
Or Eric Honecker, who was very resistant to many of the freedom movements in his country in Eastern Germany. So this is very much cooperation between the elites and the people.
Well, basically, yes. And even so much so that one of the most prominent post-communism politicians, and actually at this point teacher on my university, of whose lectures I visited, Petr Pithart, basically had this idea that, it would be cool if we didn't ban communism, we just defeated them in elections by proving that it's absolutely bad system. Well, considering our current government is formed partly by communists, so I'm not sure if that worked out all that well, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Anyway, the governments in the transition period were actually formed by the communists. So the transition into free elections were carried out by the communists themselves. And with that, since this is rather set up for the tone of the era, I will get to the next topic, which is...
Now wait a sec. Václav Havel, let's talk about him for just a moment.
Yes.
He actually had a political position. He was a dissident before he was a reader to the communist regime, right? But when it came to the transition and to the new republic, he actually held political office, right?
Yeah, he became the first Czechoslovak president post-communism.
Right.
And,
so wasn't
but,
he purging communists and you know?
No. First of all, you must understand that president in Czech Republic has nothing to do with what president is in the United States. It's the office basically has no power, or is not supposed to have any power, but that will change later, and I'll get into that because that's interesting topic. But our president is mostly ceremonial figurehead that is supposed to represent us outwardly, and that is supposed to be this cohesive unit that is trying to hold things together. Also, at that time, president was not elected by the people, but by the parliament.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you may not know this, Miki, I don't know, but that was actually the original plan in the United States, right? It's the Electoral College and so on and so forth. Basically, the states were picking someone to represent all of the state governments, right? So he wasn't really meant, the president of the United States even was not meant to be directly elected popularly. And it's still true to some degree that it goes through a system like that, but much less than it was originally. So actually what you're describing is pretty normal if you know U.S. constitutional history. It's a kind of a normal way to do things. Yeah.
Yes, but as I say, the office of Czech president holds no real power, or is not supposed to hold any real power. Anyway, then comes the post-communism period, where, of course, the first things that are focused are constitution, the Charter of Human Rights, or even defining how the rights that we actually formally had under communism, how to make them actually real. Because, for example, in the Constitution from 1960, I believe, there were many human rights applied. But in the beginning of the Constitution, they basically said that citizens carry out these liberties to advance the socialist state. So you were allowed to do these things as long as you did them in favor of the state.
Wait, I'm sorry. You're describing what time was this a situation? Was this after the end of communism?
This is during communism, how they were treating human rights.
Okay.
So basically, focus was that even though we had constitution that guaranteed them, it was absolutely useless and it needed to be reworked. So
yeah, and by the way, it's the same thing with the Soviet Constitution. They would claim that we have freedom of religion and all that, because if you look in the document, it would actually have some words like that. But like you said, it kind of gets taken away in the fine print, right? Yeah.
Well, then of course, basically immediately after the Velvet Revolution, it was clear that Slovaks were determined to get their independence for many reasons, but it's important to say that it was much more popular in Slovakia than in Czechia. And basically, it was quite uneventful. It was peaceful divorce. We retained good relations. And we're basically best buddies until we play ice hockey against each other. So
right.
I think,
and I think you had mentioned Slovakia is actually, I guess, are there less people than in the Czech Republic?
It's about half the population. No. It's gonna be probably more than half. But it's interesting to say that in Czechoslovakia, where Slovaks were considered the majority, there was almost as many Germans as Slovaks in Czechoslovakia pre-World War II.
Wait. Say that again. There were almost as many Germans?
Almost as many Germans in Czechoslovakia as Slovaks.
So not necessarily in Slovakia, but throughout Czechoslovakia.
In Czechoslovakia,
you add up all the Germans and it equaled the population of Slovakia, or the Slovaks.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
Slovaks were considered majority nation, while being roughly the same size as the Germans, who were considered minority nation.
So this goes back into the idea of the Sudetenland, right?
Yes.
So what are all those Germans up to these days in Slovakia?
That's not really a proud moment in our history, because we literally forced them out and killed many of them on their way out, stole their property, and it was quite violent. Right after the World War II, we were like, let's kick them out, and they were basically told, leave all your things here and get out.
Right, and so the term we would use these days is ethnic cleansing.
No,
right?
it was not ethnic cleansing as much as they were forced to flee. It was not expressly done to eradicate them. It was just to make them leave. But
yeah, well, no, that's what ethnic cleansing means. It means getting rid of an ethnicity. You're cleaning your country of the ethnicity.
Yeah,
right?
so,
one way or another, whether by killing them or making them leave, you don't care. Just they got to go.
And even though it was not really intended to be including killing them and robbing them and stuff like that, state just kind of looked away from that, and people who did it basically were not prosecuted. But let's get back to sorry.
Would you consider this? Would this be considered democide?
It's democidal, at least. Yeah. I just don't know how many died. It is considered a democide after World War II of the Germans overall, but that counts more than what happened in Czechoslovakia. But anyway, so, this is like 1945, 1946.
Yeah.
I guess.
So let's get back to the split. Yeah. And as much as it was peaceful, we Czechs are sort of funny folk. And we promised them we will not take the flag of Czechoslovakia as our own. But we did. So that was
so what are we looking at on the slide? Which one is Czech Republic?
Czech Republic is the top one, or Czechoslovakia historically, and the Slovak one down below with the cross of Nitra is the Slovak flag. So
you're saying that flag on the top is without modification exactly the flag that Czechoslovakia had.
Czechoslovakia with outside of quite short period in during communism where it had some communist symbol on it, but the pre-communist Czechoslovakia had this exact flag.
Okay.
Next slide.
So now we're into communism.
Now we're after communism.
No.
After we split.
Exiting communism.
Oh, sorry. Exiting communism.
First 10 years, roughly. First decade out of communism, right?
Yes. This is after the split in 1992, 1993 to roughly 2000. And basically, I construed this slide with these three people with very specific intention because they represent basically three, let's say, worldviews that were becoming dominant. The Václav Havel one, the gentleman on the left, was the open to West, liberal, optimistic, hopeful, quite peaceful. Someone could call him almost pacifist. This was the really heavily pro-Western guy. I mean, they all were, but this one was the pro-Western, the pro-international guy who was associated with it the most. Then we have the gentleman on the right at the top, and that is Miloš Zeman, our current president. And in 1998, I believe, or 1998, he became Prime Minister of Czech Republic. This guy was back then, leader of the Czech Socially Democratic Party, and basically, I guess I will get back to when I come to privatization. I will come back to him because it's hard to explain it the worldview without actually getting the privatization. And the gentleman on the bottom right is Václav Klaus, our former president, who was between Havel and Miloš Zeman. So you see these three people important in the 90s forming the politics. Václav Klaus was the right wing of our politics, in some cases basically Friedmanite. And he was the one who was actually responsible for how the privatization was ultimately carried out. So these three important people who formed our nation in the 90s consequently all became presidents of our country in future. Now,
so how were these people perceived in their time, popularity wise? Were they very popular? Was there a section of society that was very much nostalgic of the past, like in Eastern Germany? So, for example, with the new West and East combining, there was a lot of resentment towards the West and a lot of nostalgia for East Germany. Was there a similar case in Czechoslovakia, or what was happening there?
People who believed in these things probably voted communist, and communists made up around 10% or 20% at most of the vote. These people all were pro-Western, non-nostalgic. All of these gentlemen actually criticized the regime at the very end of it before it even fell. But there's the question if they weren't allowed by the regime to do that intentionally. But I'm getting ahead of myself with what is coming. So the wild 90s also culturally were, as I write here, socially and culturally loose. Basically, in some cases, it was basically anarchy. Because if there were laws on the books against certain things, because it was communist law, no one wanted to enforce it. So, for example, when one artist painted one giant tank that was put as a statue in Prague, when he painted it pink to basically ridicule communists, because the tank was sort of symbol of communism and of the invasion of the 68, it was largely supported by the public, and no one really cared that it was technically a property damage. So, and then there were these wild things like one guy sort of from the underground of the era inviting people to his business, some bar or whatnot, by driving naked girls in open top car around Prague. So the 90s were really quite chaotic.
Okay, so let's put it in context. On a scale from a monastery to the Weimar Republic, where was the Czech Republic of the 1990s?
Well, it depends if you're talking Prague or the rural areas. The rural areas probably weren't like that
so
crazy.
Yeah. But let's say Prague. Let's say Prague.
Which you said on this? How you said the scale?
On one end you have a monastery, on the other end you have the Weimar Republic.
1 point exactly from the middle towards Weimar Republic, because people were like, "Yeah, I will do everything." Humor was extremely offensive back then, like absolutely no takebacks. Everything was offensive. We have this show called Česká soda that really specialized only in this type of humor, and there were basically even genocide jokes almost. So really, the culture was really loose. Anyway, of course, the next point that is really important to understand the 90s is the transformation of the economy and how it was carried out, and that we of course call privatization. Now, we divide our privatization to two parts, small and big. small were mostly small businesses, shops in towns. Big privatization was large-scale industry. These two were carried in different methods. The small businesses were basically auctioned. The big businesses were specifically ad hoc privatized by government projects. And here comes the problem. When you auction for something, who wins? Well, the guy who has the money. Who has the money after communism falls? Only those who made it illegally, which mostly were, as I write here, vexláci. Vexláci, I sort of anglicized into plural, but vexlák is the singular, vexláci, plural in Czech. And these people were making money off of selling coupons to buy basically things from abroad that you were not supposed to buy because all the foreign currency was confiscated upon receiving it. You had 15 days to give away any foreign currency you have received to the government. For that, they would give you these coupons called bony. And for that, you could buy foreign things from special shops called tuzeks. Now, government proclaimed that the normal exchange ratio was that one bon was supposed to be 1 crown or mark. I'm not sure. I think it was crown, but they set the exchange ratio themselves to be equal. Now, as we know, just saying something has this value isn't really how the value functions. So these guys basically developed on the black market their own exchange ratios, where the exchange would be about 5 to 1. So complete discrepancy between the actual exchange ratio that the bank, the state would give you, and these I don't want to call them smugglers because they were not smuggling the things, they were only working with the currency. But the point is, only these people basically held money. So when the small privatization kicked in, only they were allowed to auction for the small businesses. And as my father basically explains to me, even in my town, all the businesses that are now owned by someone, the people who own them were the ones doing the illegal things, which, I mean, everyone supported because it's communism and you don't really like the government, so you support it. And yep.
So just on this point, how much influence was there from Western entrepreneurs and businessmen buying out Czechoslovakian businesses in the privatization? Because from my understanding, with East Germany and Treuhand, when the privatization was happening there, the auctioneers specifically auctioned off to Western already established businesses. Did this happen in Czechoslovakia? Did you
yes,
see?
I'll get to that because small businesses really weren't auctioned were auctioned by the people who had money in Czech Republic, because really small businesses aren't going to be bought by foreign industrial concerns.
Right.
But there comes the big privatization of the large-scale industry, and here comes the problem. It was, even though there was some legal framework how to do it, it was done sort of ad hoc. Each specific big business was, as government said it would, privatized by someone who was hired to create the privatization plan. But it was not really that honest of a job. It was largely, it was large-scale insider trading, basically. People who had the information, what is going to be done with that, who were tipped off by their government buddies, got most of it, and basically this is the origin of the great big money in Czech underground crime scene, and how the mob bosses that will become relevant later came to their property. So there is one specific case where Václav Klaus, the guy, prime minister and then president, who was responsible for the plan of the privatization, were really angry at Petr Pithart, the guy I told you about, the really honest guy who wanted to win and prove communism was bad by winning in elections. He basically sold Škoda Auto, our Czech brand of cars, to some German businessmen. And basically, it's one of the few that weren't completely destroyed and tunneled out. The rest of them were usually sold to cronies, and they were defrauded of the investors who actually could invest in that through the privatization plan, but that's really complicated and would take too long to explain. They were defrauded of their money. And one specific case, there was this guy who emigrated from Czech Republic in like 60s, came to America, got a bachelor's degree in economics from Harvard, then came back after the revolution, and started basically claiming how he's a great businessman, how he's gonna give the people the option to have tenfold investment revenue. You know, if someone promises today to you that you're gonna make 10 times as much money as you invest to his fund, you'll probably think he's either crazy or fraud. Well, this guy was fraud. And this is called Harvard funds, basically where he tricked a lot of people into investing and then defrauded all the money, escaped to Bahamas. Today he lives there with international warrants on his head applied, and basically he's living happily ever after because he could defraud all the people.
He just relaxes on the beach anyway. I wanted to bring in an article by Murray Rothbard, just to not to go into it, but just to mention it. I'm putting in the chat now. It's an article called "How and How Not to Desocialize." It was appeared in 1992, so right in this crucial period. And I noticed, skimming over it real quick, he specifically names Václav Klaus, and he isn't totally critical, but he says he's talking about, he talks about a number of things, but privatizing is one of the things he discusses. And he talks about one of Václav Klaus's proposals and says, well, this is better than some other things that are being done, but here's the problem with it, So anyway, it's a really good article, and I recommend it to folks just to see. Well, something real quick rabbit hole, Miki. I don't know. I don't think it's in this article, but I remember Murray Rothbard saying somewhere that, as you may or may not know, during the Cold War, we had any number of institutions in the United States, kind of like NGO type of institutions that were about like understanding the Soviet Union and stuff like this, right? And he said, strangely, in all these years, nobody has spent any time thinking about what happens if communism ends, and what do we do? What do we do then? You'd think that there would be in the voluminous writings that they poured out all this time, they would have written about how do you desocialize? What do you do to come back from this? And he said, well, I couldn't find anything, so I'm going to tell you my thoughts. And this article is really where he spells out piece in all kinds of different aspects of it, how to come down from a communist system in a way that shows an understanding of economics, and of course he brings in ethics a lot. And I guess the one point I want to mention is that he really thinks it would be better to use the homesteading principle. That is, if a bunch of people were working at a business under the communist government, and now we're like, what do we do with this business? He wouldn't like this idea that you just described, which is basically whoever already had power and money ends up controlling everything. he would think that the people who were actually working there kind of homesteaded the value.
That brings me actually to a related point.
Let me just finish the thought, which is that they then should be the ones, they should kind of get shares in the company or whatever, and then see where it goes from there, right? But go ahead.
Funnily enough, this coming from Mr. NCAP, Rothbard, is what the Czech left at that point wanted. Miloš Zeman, who criticized from the left the privatization plan of Václav Klaus, wanted to basically give equal shares to workers in those state concerns.
Right.
So, and this is the split you see in the worldview, where basically Klaus wanted absolutely, well, he was saying he wants, I'm not sure how much he wanted exactly to happen anyway, basically pure capitalism, everyone go absolutely crazy and do whatever you want. Then there was Miloš Zeman, who from the left was saying, well, let's give it to the workers in the state-owned businesses and leave it at that. Now, the important point now is that, as I write here, that small privatization went mostly to the people working with foreign money. Big privatization often went to secret police members who knew a lot of stuff, who had the information capital to take down someone if he wanted, and who later even joined the police after communism and remained working there as basically agents of their buddies, taking down people they didn't like. This, especially in the 90s, was a very big problem because of all the anarchy, the absolute uncertainty of laws, and general instability led into some very interesting things. And I would just like to point to the picture of this gentleman here, who we nicknamed Godfather Mrazek. This guy was basically one of the biggest money smugglers, or how to say it, from the communist era. An important thing to understand about this is that these people, though working illegally, were sort of working in unison with the police, with the secret police. Because, as you know from the USA, how the mafia worked, it didn't work against the police. It worked very much with the police. And this goes similarly for these guys, because they were basically the mafia running illegal businesses, but they basically exchanged vital information with the secret police on whoever needed it. They got the money, secret police got the problematic people that were against the regime, and everybody was happy in that exchange. So let's carry on.
So just to summarize that big privatization point, it sounds like the blackmailers came out with a lot of control from the privatization. Yes. The people who could blackmail.
And
people.
Also the problem was that people, after 40 years of communism, had absolutely no idea how stocks work. So even though there were some auction funds that they could invest in, they absolutely had no idea how it worked, and in a lot of instances they got defrauded. And yeah, I forgot. This is a really funny thing, because the government started basically saying, yeah, you can buy this auction book that will let you invest in these privatization processes. And the total value that my father told me, he calculated that the total value of all the books, if issued, would be still about 20 times less than the actual value of the companies being privatized.
Huh?
So it was.
So they were really giving the opportunity to get very, very small piece of the companies to everybody, right?
Yes, and you could absolutely make insane amount of money if this went as it was proposed to go. But since I discussed it didn't, it just absolutely didn't happen. So I end with this and through this period, few people, not the people who were civilized citizens who didn't do criminal stuff, but only few rather criminal or not really clean people got all the juicy stuff. And from the small businesses, all those guys who basically smuggled money got the stuff. So we end the 90s and the privatization with not really the people getting to enjoy the privatization of the state-owned businesses, and were basically not given back what the communists stole from them.
So let me tell you an old joke, and you tell me how much it applies to the Czech Republic in this period, okay? This is from Yuri Maltsev, who was in the Gorbachev administration, and now he's a senior fellow with the Mises Institute, okay? And he told us in China, they still call it the Chinese Communist Party. They still have pictures of Mao, etc., right? They didn't change the flag, but everything changed in terms of how it was actually functioning economically. We can argue about that, but roll with me on this. He says in Russia, they stopped calling themselves communist. They broke down the statues of Lenin, but nothing changed, and the same people are basically in power. So how much does this apply to Czech Republic?
Well, yes, it does, and it doesn't. Let me expand. Basically, the Communist Party, the political officials, they did lose the power. But the Communist secret police, the most ruthless ones, who were sort of semi-independent from the political actors, they retained the power. So it went from ideological communists to those who were enabling communist power to suppress the people.
Yeah, so basically the thugs, more or less.
Yes.
Yeah. Right. Okay, well let's move on.
So we could say that the middle managers in the background, this secret police with no faces and no names, they really took power after all
no
this.
faces and no names is exactly what I say. Yes.
Right. So we could almost say that the top of the cathedral the head of the snake was chopped off, but simply these people with no names and no faces took their place.
Yes. In regards to economic power, absolutely.
Or to extend this to some of the things we've been talking about lately, right, Matt Merck? It sounds like it was an accelerated embrace of power by the managerial class, right?
Yes, that's the word I was looking for, but I didn't want to.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Okay, go on. What is this?
Here comes the absolutely greatest political crime of the 90s, opposition treaty. Imagine how you would feel if Republicans, all the really corrupt Republicans, like rhinos, and the Democratic corrupt politicians, like neoliberals or whatever you want to call them, like basically the Biden wing, imagine how you would feel if these people would form a government together, specifically ally just to extend their own power and to completely screw over every and all constitutional checks and balances. This is precisely what happened.
I see you've met Democrats.
Well, Václav Klaus and Miloš Zeman, the two important guys, the fierce critic from the left and the guy who did the privatization, were basically like, well, none of us can have the majority, and we really don't want to talk with the small parties. So how about we just form a government by these two fiercest opposites of one another, the ones who are supposed to be fighting. They formed a government. Basically, Václav Klaus and his party allowed Miloš Zeman to form government by walking away from the chamber when it was voted upon for the trust of the government. And since his guys left, they were allowed to get the majority, and basically they agreed on points like, we will discuss, even though we're officially not in the government. We will get positions in certain bureaus. We will discuss foreign policy together, and this is the most important, absolutely prohibit any work with any other party whatsoever.
Okay, so I let me say back to you what I think you're saying. Academic agent's been talking about this. It's been a long, boy, this goes back. Somebody said there's not a dime's worth of difference between the Republicans and the Democrats. That was back in like the 50s or something. Mm-hmm. Anyway, it's been often observed. Other people say Republicans, Democrats, two wings of the war party, of the warbird or whatever. But most people have been able to believe that they're really two sides who really fight each other. You're saying this was like a mask-off moment for the cathedral, where the two main parties just openly collaborated, formed a government, excluded everyone else.
Yes.
Right?
And I need to add that this was after quite a big scandal of Václav Klaus with inexplicable financing of his party, and this led into his loss in the elections. But funnily enough, in the previous elections, where the government was formed by Václav Klaus and Miloš Zeman, there was also the gentleman agreement when Miloš Zeman took his party and walked away from the chamber. So the at that time coalition of ODS, the Klaus party, and smaller parties formed a government, but were like 1 or 2 votes short of majority. So Miloš Zeman was like, well, I will gentlemanly walk out and have this coalition, because we don't count the communists as legitimate seats anyway, because there were some, and this is basically the natural continuation of this, but with express exclusion of third parties. Well, so this, as you can see and guess, is obviously large break of trust of the public in the system, because these guys are supposed to be against each other. They were fierce critics. They were debating. They were hating each other, and suddenly, well, we're forming government together, basically.
Yeah, it's the other terminology is the inner party and the outer party, right? They just come together and just say we're just the same thing, really.
Well, this is not even inner and outer.
We're just going to work together.
I was thinking about this a lot, and I don't like to use the terminology of cathedral on the Czech Republic, because the cathedral it usually governs through moral power, or pretends to be moral, and basically tries to govern the social norms. And this is just not applicable here, because there were no morals.
So could you say? So how long did this coalition last? Because was there infighting that eventually broke it down, or like a cartel? Or
funnily enough, this is one of the only governments that lasted a full term.
Of course it did.
Well, now let's proceed to 2000s, and this is basically the logical consequence of what was happening in the 90s. Privatization was being finalized, and even not some small things, there were quite big things that will have a large impact later in the 2010s, which I will get later, obviously. And here comes conflict of the newly formed underground world between each other. These guys, these mobsters, basically all have their guys in the police, in the Ministry of Interior. They all have their power in government, but they're trying to fight each other through these people they have in that. And it basically results in one of the most interesting things that happened in that era, and that is the murder of the godfather Mrazek. In 2002 or 4, I'm not sure right now, there was assassination attempt on this guy, who I'm described previously as the guy who worked with the money, one of the chiefs of the underground, and from then on, he started to be really careful. He started driving everywhere with armored car, and basically was successfully at avoiding any other attempt. That is until 2006, where he was actually successfully murdered. Now, there are important things to say about Mraz. He knew a lot. I would dare to compare his murder to the absolutely unquestionable suicide of the Epstein. And basically, I believe he was killed, and that is my belief, because he knew too much about one important guy that we will be talking later about. Apart from that, 2000s were quite uneventful. Well, basically, apart from general instability, but that is here from the 90s and will continue onward. But apart from this, there were not really all that many events in the 2000s that were this large, world-shattering. These were they were just weren't great events. So, if I continue, yes, and this is my point. The entire time, even today, this country is extremely politically unstable. As you can see, 15 governments in 28 years. That's just I'm not sure if we actually have, but we might be even less stable than Italy, and that's saying something.
Right.
Wow.
Only 3 of these governments actually served full term, one of them being the opposition treaty.
Mm-hmm.
And only the very first one was re-elected, and that was the Václav Klaus government, that was elected actually before the split of Czechoslovakia, but remained in government, remained to govern throughout the split and after the split for a full 4 years. Then it was re-elected, and after 2 years, there was this scandal with inexplicable funding. So,
could I just ask a question really quickly?
Mm-hmm.
What I probably should have asked this before about Czechoslovakia's economy. Was Czechoslovakia at this time, coming into the 2000s, out of the 90s, agricultural? Was it a very industrial nation? What were the key sectors of it that were being kind of?
We were industrial we have been industrial for past 100 years, and we remain industrial to this day. We are very, very industrial country with the services sector, mainly from tourism, because Prague is quite nice and we don't have that much crime, so going here is actually fun, plus the great beer. So apart from that, we're largely industrial country. We have some agriculture, but it was basically destroyed by Commies, because when you actually work in agriculture, you know that you do not consolidate the fields into large swaths of land. You keep them sort of separated. So when you fly over some agricultural land, you see little squares of land that are basically cut off by little roads or some other things like that. Well, Commies here consolidated the land into large plains, and therefore they really devalued it, like a lot. And it's funny that when you look over from the plane when you're over the border of Austria and Czech Republic, you see the difference. You see how on the one side there are large fields consolidated together, and on one is healthy agriculture. So even though we had some agriculture, it was quite devastated. Anyway, to further illustrate this point, this is a screen I took from Wikipedia page of our governments. Sadly, this page does not exist in English wiki, so I had to take the Czech. But I want you to pay the attention to the 4th column, which is days of the government when it governed. You see only 3 of those who lasted a full term lasted more than 1400 days. And then you look, 200 days, even the 100 days, And you see, this is quite unstable. Then you look at the last column, which, yeah, you can translate probably, but you see the reasons why the governments were falling. Basically, either it was government that was supposed to govern after scandal to last until elections, or it ended by a scandal. So this is just to illustrate the point of instability. And even if as you see the pre-last column, the majorities were often not very, very large. Like 101 out of 200 is very not stable government, let's say.
Slim, yeah. So it also sounds like with the scandals, there's a lot of corruption, right?
Oh yes, and this is also sort of the manifestation of the underground fighting, and and they started basically removing their opponents even from the positions of power, because you can't have hostile politicians there. And I forgot, this is the kicker with the opposition treaty. They tried to change the election law to be extremely discriminatory against smaller parties. Constitutional Court at first shut it down, but about 2 years later, they passed the parliament passed something like that again, and Constitutional Court said, "Well, I gotta let it be, because why not?" And this is I actually alluded to this when I was talking to you about it before the show, about the landmark decision that just came 2 days ago. Court today, or 2 days ago, again decided that this election law was illegal. But now, so first they decided it was illegal, then that it wasn't, and then that it is. He basically was at all three decisions and always on the side that won. So he supported banning it, not banning it, and banning it. That's just to illustrate how our constitutional court works. Anyway, fun fact: because of this decision 2 days ago, as of now, we don't have election law, and we don't have a system how to count the seats in parliament after election. And election is coming up in 8 months.
Right.
Well, anyway, let us proceed. Now, this is big shift in power. Remember when I said that presidents are not supposed to have power?
Yeah, and I have to say, Miki, this is an aspect of, I guess, their parliamentary systems that will have these presidents sometimes. I don't really understand. I've heard this before, and I don't really get it. What is the president supposed to be doing? Just sort of being the face for the government?
Yes, sort of. And he has constitutional duties, basically organizing how the government forms. So in Czech Republic, for example, president is the one who chooses who gets to form the government. If his choice fails, he gets to pick second. If his second choice fails, it automatically goes to the chair of the Chamber of Deputies, who is elected by the House. So it's president can sort of go around the pure democratic will of the chamber, but if he fails to do so, they can force their candidate anyway. Well, they can, but this is gonna be fun. Well, these presidential governments, government on Jan Fischer and government of Jiří Rusnok. First, Jan Fischer, basically government that was supposed to be only transitional government until very early elections. After government of, I think there was second Topolanex government fell. He was supposed to only be really short-lived prime minister that was supposed to be there for like few months and go away. Well, here comes the president. President basically refused to call the snap elections because calling elections is one of the rights of the president. And this resulted in Fischer government. Just give me a second.
Real quick, Miki,
Yes.
here's an explanation. Tell me if you agree. Jules Roy says most European republics have a ceremonial president instead of a king or queen. So is that a good way to understand it? It would be similar to the role, or it's supposed to be similar to the role of the royal family in the UK, for example, where they're not making the laws or anything like that, but they sort of have that ceremonial position, right?
Yes, but some political scientists at this point argue that we ceased to be purely parliamentary democracy and that we became half presidential.
Right, because, which is what you're explaining, yeah.
Yes, and basically, one of the things that our president also does, and is very important, and it was intended even before this presidential paragraph that I'm going to talk about, is naming judges. So, Senate confirms, president names, even though, so it's like fourth body. It's not really the executive, which is the government. It's like legislative, it's not judiciary, but it has its own power, which is even more weird because even weirder because we have this basically fourth branch of government, and no, it's not journalism. It's sort of control bureau or basically audit bureau, one might say, and these guys are basically supposed to be neutrally checking what is the government doing, if the books are in order and stuff like that. This is something that I have not heard in Anglosphere at all. It's quite German idea.
This sounds vaguely perhaps like something that's called the Office of Management and Bureau, or sorry, I can't. OMB is what it stands for. Office of Management and Budget. It's the largest office within the executive office of the President of the United States. And they produce the president's budget, examine programs, policies, procedures, see whether they comply with the president's policies, stuff like that. But that is not usually considered like a political player. They are literally just kind of bureaucrats. But you're saying in Czechia, the equivalent actually is a political player.
What you're describing, you said it yourself, that it's within the executive branch. We have this, and we consider it basically its own branch, its control branch. So it was just a fun fact. It's not really that important. I just wanted to share this issue. This understanding the system here is sort of weird from the Anglo perspective because your systems are diametrically differently composed. Anyway, these governments, Jan Fischer was government that governed over a year because president refused to call the elections. Jiří Rusnok, and this is the real power grab, he governed because president refused to accept the government that was supposed to be ran by the chair of the Chamber of Deputies. He literally ignored constitutional process and named his own government, which did not receive the trust of the chamber. It immediately was forced to give them to resign, but it remained governing resign for about 200 days. Because I guess we're absolute circus here.
Right.
Anyway, this, as you can see, is quite important power grab of the president, and it completely shifts the power from the parliament to president, even though president, nothing changed, no laws changed, no constitution change was passed. Presidents just started behaving differently, like ignoring the constitution and doing sort of their own thing. Now,
what does academic agent talk about? He talks about the man with will, right? You know what I mean? It sounds like, in a way, the president was just like, "I'm just going to do it," and
actually,
he basically got away with it, right?
Actually, those two presidents. First, Jan Fischer government was by Václav Klaus, and Jiří Rusnok by Miloš Zeman. And another important thing, we have structural, as I write here, structural constitutional flaw. You are supposed to form government by majority in the Chamber of Deputies. But president, as you can see, named someone differently and basically ignored the constitution. What is the process for basically recovering from this? It's impeachment. Impeachment needs 3/5 of both houses, both chambers. So, in theory, because president can just ignore the constitution, he just needs 2/5 of either chamber to cover for him. And therefore, government in practice, government is formed either by majority of Chamber of Deputies or 2/5 in either chamber, which is absolutely maddeningly bad structure of law that absolutely breaks any order in the country. And especially today's president or current president started abusing this fact that no one could ever seriously impeach him a lot. Anyway, I follow. Here comes another break in the conception of our politics. In 2013, we changed constitution to elect president directly instead of electing him by parliament, meaning by Senate and Chamber of Deputies as well, together.
And this was done through an official constitutional amendment process?
Yes, and this was official constitutional amendment that further empowered president because he was no longer reliant on parliament and basically could be elected against the parliament, which is basically what immediately after that happened. And President Miloš Zeman was elected in 2013, the same year, in quite hilarious elections because the people who were running were just absolutely maddeningly crazy, exotic. One guy who was so tattooed he was literally blue was one of the serious contenders.
I'm sorry.
So,
why was he blue? I missed that.
He was so tattooed, like.
I see.
Yeah, his entire skin was literally blue, and he was one of the serious contenders. So anyway, here comes really one of the saddest things that happened here. I have no doubt that this government was somewhat corrupt because basically all our governments are somewhat corrupt. But in 2013, again, the year of destiny of this country, basically, after the change in constitution to president, Miloš Zeman being elected, and Miloš Zeman he is sort of a bitter guy, and really he tries to and enjoys punishing his enemies, or just people who don't like him. And in 2013, there was police raid on government buildings to take out few people, take into custody a few people of Nečas government. And it was alleged that there was massive fraud, massive bribery, massive problems, illegal stuff. And years later, we know that basically now none of that was true. And basically all of the allegations were dropped. Only thing remaining that we know of is that the then chief of staff of the government was mistress of this guy and used intelligence agencies to spy on his then wife. By the way, this guy, the prime minister, actually married the chief of staff later. So this was.
Oh, what did I want to say? Oh, yeah. So was this a coup or an insurrection?
Yes. So I'm gonna get to that. I would say that this event was basically weaponization of police by the underground to take out unfriendly government. And this is really the breaking point of our politics. From here on out, it just goes down. And once I get to it, everything will click. And you will just see, oh, so that's what's happening. So I will try to proceed to that. But just before that, I will mention this. In 2011, there comes this movement. It's ANO, akce nespokojených občanů, in translation, movement, action of dissatisfied citizens. It's based on critique of corruption. It's promising real change because, nothing ever lied in politics like promising real change. But these people got celebrities on board, real big names. It's got real momentum behind it. And it was one of the few new parties that actually managed to break through and became relevant. We had a lot of new parties, small ones, that immediately died off. But this one survived. And now keep this in mind. It was 2011, 2 years before the takeout of the Czech government. Now, what do you get when you get secret police taking power through corrupt privatization, mob battles, and basically war within the government and within the underworld that are trying to either kill each other or rob each other of their corruptly obtained property, in combination with becoming large industrial magnates that consolidated a lot of power, economic power, and contacts. If you combine it with large political instability, and if you combine it with democracy and potentially a party that tries to solve these issues, what could you possibly get? Well, Czech Republic found an answer, and we got this guy. This guy is Andrej Babiš, our current prime minister. He is behind the foundation of the ANO party. Basically, from all the celebrities, all the important people that supported him in 2011, and then no one is in the party. No one even endorses it. Everyone got their hands off because they're disgusted, frankly, by what it's doing. This guy also controls a large chunk of media. If I'm not mistaken, he controls basically the largest chunk of circulated media in Czech Republic. His company, that because he was communist secret police agent and was one of the few people who actually was allowed by the regime to travel out of the country before the revolution, and who spent the revolution in Morocco as basically communist trade ambassador, or whatever you want to call it, for some state-owned company. And he consolidated insane amount of businesses through extremely predatory techniques and weaponization of police after the revolution. For example, he bought about 30% of one large state-owned company in privatization for 200 million crowns. Then, magically, some people that were in contact with him in the police led raids on rest of the shareholders, and the bank that he was, who was basically the main partner of the big company, suddenly wanted only one investor to be the sole shareholder. So, due to the police pressure and the raids and everything else, he bought the rest of the company for like 10th of what he bought the 30% for. And through these practices and of such nature, he consolidated insane conglomerate called Agrofert now, which is basically a monopoly on agriculture in Czech Republic. I mean, there are others, but there is nothing that even comes close to competing with this giant. Now, we maybe could not have ever known about what this guy was doing, but he was arrogant and reckless, because when he stole billions and billions on crowns, he wanted slightly more, and we basically started knowing about it due his fraud over EU funds, meager 50 million crowns, so incomparable to what he already had. And Europe started investigating that, our journalists started investigating that, and because of this one sort of mistake, that was the only one that and police actually had file on that, but it was police that was friendly to him, and some other branch of the police that was not friendly to him learned of that file, and that's how it got public. So this guy basically split his big company, not the Agrofair, but one of the subsidiaries, into several small businesses, and tried to claim about 50 million crowns of EU funds intended for small businesses, which he would not be able to get because the company he was splitting was far larger than would make it eligible for these funds. Obviously, this is absolutely clear fraud, and people and during due to the police infighting, we learned of that. Now, there are some spicy things about this guy. His own son alleges that this guy actually hired a guy to kidnap his own son. His son is claiming that he was kidnapped on the orders of his own father.
Nice.
And this guy basically also even, and this is important, when you heard about the opposition treaty, when the government was formed by the Prime Minister Miloš Zeman, he was one of the biggest, as I was talking about the cronies that got all the privatization, he was one of the ones that got the probably the biggest privatization event, or the company, privatized company in 2001, or was planning on. Then he backed off from it, and basically the relations with Zeman sort of soured. But then he came up with an idea to collaborate with him. And their alliance and what they were doing resulted in 2017 first government of Babiš that was named by Zeman, appointed by Zeman. It did not get the trust of the parliament, and yet it remained governing for 200 days again, because presidential power, and I will just ignore constitution. Then he was forced, sort of, by the public backlash to actually do something, and he formed government with the Communists and the Social Democrats. Basically, the Communists have no ministries, but they, on their votes, the government stands. So they obviously have some power over it. We just don't know what exactly, which is even more sinister. And to this day, this is our prime minister. So quite the guy.
I've seen some people characterize him as a populist. Is that correct?
This guy has absolutely no actual platform whatsoever. Okay. He basically, in 2011, his party was the right that is gonna be better than Civic Democratic Party of Klaus, and is gonna make it right. Then he governs with Social Democrats, and now he sucked basically all voters of Social Democrats.
Right. So would you say that is there election tampering or fraud in Czech Republic?
No.
No?
I think he actually won absolutely rightfully in regards to legality of the elections. But basically, he won only because of the change of the election law from 2002 that benefits big parties. Without that change, he probably would not have the majority he has now.
So what would you say is the general mood of his presidency with all this corruption?
Premiership, not presidency, but this
sorry,
guy.
sorry, yeah.
Well, basically chaos. It's not like there's any real coherent message of this of his term. It's not like his government is even mildly coherent. You don't understand what actually he's doing unless you look at it from the perspective of of just increasing his own power and doing everything he can to stay in power. Because as there are currently criminal charges against him, this political position is guaranteeing him immunity. And once his opposition gets over the half of the chamber, they can strip him of his immunity and he could go to jail for quite a long time.
Okay. So would you... So... I'm just thinking about how usually these sorts of political situations work. What part of the total industry or economy is owned by either him or people in his party or in his sphere of influence?
Do you know that? Actually, I don't think that he owns some insane amount, some great part of the economy. He just has this one agricultural concern that no one can compete against. But I'm not sure if I could put a number on any share of the economy he owns.
Right, okay. Fair enough.
Okay, well, let's keep rolling.
Well, and I wanted to basically end with this. Basically paint what our Prime Minister stands as now. Because I was actually not thinking we would have time for much more. I could briefly talk about current political parties and what they are doing, I guess, so if you're interested, or I could skip to the last point, which is quite funny.
Yeah, let's do this
and
stuff.
Interesting trivia.
Let's do this stuff.
So, the party ANO was basically parodied in European elections of 2019 by party ANO vytrolíme Europarlament. In translation, yes, we will troll the Europarlament. These people had absolutely no program. They just ran on memes and being absolutely retarded, intentionally.
So we will wait. The name, the Trollime or whatever. That's troll.
Yeah,
they're literally using the word troll.
Yes, the party was ran as yes, we will troll the Europarlament.
Okay.
And they did not get a seat, but they got over 3% of the vote, which means they're eligible for funds for political parties.
Right.
So we're publicly funding party that is expressly only about trolling. Basically, I almost voted for them actually, but then I had some brief moment of sanity and just actually voted for the Civic Party. But
we have something very similar here. It's called the Pirate Party, and
I was going to say, don't you have the Pirate Party as well, Miki?
Yeah, we have Pirate Party, and don't remind me of them. I don't like them. No, in all seriousness, these are basically not some super hardcore, but basically SJWs. And it's probable that they're gonna be having the next prime minister, which is absolutely insane.
Wow, awesome. So what do you mean by the codified labor theory of value? How do you legislate the labor theory of value?
So basically, we have clause in our labor code that says that you cannot put the different price on labor of similar nature. So
it's basically price controls that are supposedly driven by calculation of labor value or something.
Yes, and what happened is that it came to court about a year ago, where I think it was actually state-run business, like post office or something, that was paying their postman or drivers actually of their postman differently in different parts of the country, depending on the economic situation in that part of the country. Like in rural area, the prices are going to be very different than in Prague. So they were obviously paying differently. And so this came to court, and court said, nope, according to the labor code, you can't do that. This is discrimination of the same type of labor.
That is rough. Okay, next one. Autarkic law on foods in Czech shops. So you have to it has to come from Czechia or something?
Basically, about a month ago, our parliament passed this genius law that has, and I can say that as a student of law, no effect whatsoever. It cannot be applied within the structure of European Union. It literally has no effect because our courts are supposed to apply European law before our law. And Parliament basically passed that in like 20 years, we should have 70% of food in our shops be from Czech Republic. Which is...
And I'm assuming it's not 70% right now. It's well below that.
No, it's obviously not. And basically no one wants the Czech food anyway. And combine that with obviously the agricultural monopoly of a certain prime minister,
I see.
Makes even more sense.
Got it. Yeah. Oh, well, this is funny because this is sort of like the Corn Laws. If you've heard about that, this was one of the great classical liberal achievements was to defeat the Corn Laws. The Corn Laws were maybe not so directly for one person, but it was for the landowners, basically making it very expensive to do anything but buy grain from the landowners, right? So it's really very similar to the Corn Law, except you're saying EU law supersedes it. So for now, at least, it doesn't.
It literally has no effect, but we still can get sanctioned for passing it by European Union.
Right. The EU is unhappy. Okay, what's next? Constitutional Court rulings regarding its powers and elections.
Yes.
Did we cover
elections
that?
I discussed. Yeah. I covered the elections, but not its powers. This is
is Czech using the euro?
No, but to the powers of Constitutional Court.
Oh, sorry.
Constitutional Court in I think late 2000 somewhere ruled itself the supreme authority over our constitution, and said that it can examine constitutionality of constitutional changes. Meaning that if you decide to, through the process of changing of constitution that is proper and constitutional, change the constitution, Constitutional Court can tell you that that's not constitutional.
Right.
So basically,
war is peace and freedom is slavery.
Because Marbury versus Madison obviously is just some amateurish, absolutely non-significant ruling. This is just so much worse. Basically, court identified that there is a core of our constitution about democratic state and rule of law, and whatever goes against that in constitutional court opinion can be ruled unconstitutional, even if you would want to change it through the constitutional process. Well, anyway, euro. We don't pay with euro. We promise to pay with euro, and we're happily ignoring paying with euro, and we're just like, nah, mate, no.
So you use the crown or whatever? That's still
Czech
the
crown.
money? That's still the money in Czech. Okay.
Yes.
Interesting.
Now, alcoholism and nihilism in population. This is, I think, the most defining factor of our population. If you ask me to describe Czech population, the first thing I go to is we sit in pubs, complain, and never do anything of consequence. And basically, also, which was funny about the article you written when you came to Prague, I told you that it was interesting that you chose to focus on religion, in specifically the most or the second most atheist country in Europe, which sort of connects with nihilism, I believe, because there's real distrust towards any structure of anything, either value structure or religious structure or political structure. We just want to really sit in those damn pubs and drink our beer. Now, another interesting fun fact, we have actually a large Church of the Jedi. In 2011 census, 15,000 people proclaimed their religion is Jedi. And I'm assuming then on this year's census, the number is only going to grow.
Oh, wow. Is this like is this officially recognized or anything?
No. But we're just really nation of trolls. So.
Oh, okay. I see. Got it.
And
that's funny.
This easily flows to non-existing man elected to be the greatest Czech of all time. We have this person, Jara Zimmerman, who is literally a figure created by a group of writers who basically pretend to be historians studying the great man of Jara Zimmerman, and the plays they write, they say, are the plays that are discovered after this great man wrote them. And this is basically our national hero. So when we had some large vote on who is the greatest Czech, we elected him. And then those bastards running the show of electing the greatest Czech said that non-existence is disqualifying factor. So he did not win, which I find pathetic.
Okay, a few things before we go to super chats and wrap up. There's another Czech person who is feeding me things to bring up. Is the first J pronounced ja or ya in a name?
Please?
A name starts with the letter J. How would you say it?
Jan?
Yeah. Okay. So this is Jaromír Soukup?
Oh, no. Yeah, that's Jaromír.
Jaromír. Okay. Who's this?
What? Where?
You don't know the name? Okay. Here.
No. I'm sort of lost to what I should be looking at.
I'm just I'm giving you something. Here, I'll put it in the private chat. Do you know who this person is?
Oh, this is a total beam. Yes. This guy, Jaromír Soukup, basically is media magnate who has his completely insane show, I guess. And I don't even know how to describe it. It's so bizarre what he is. He is definitely a political actor with his news. He supports specific politicians, absolutely, obviously. But what he does is so bizarre, I have no idea how to even talk about him. So he has this show where he invites even somewhat obscure politicians to talk about stuff. So I think on many occasions he's actually a better journalist than the high horse riding journalist of, let's say, more esteemed publications. But otherwise, that guy is complete meme. I'm sorry, I'm disappointing many Czechs here that I can't talk about him, but I just can't. He's too bizarre.
You don't know how to sum it up. Okay. Yes. Well, let's I think that concludes the material you wanted to cover.
Yes.
Let me try to summarize. The end of communism did not spell the end of communists having influence in the country.
Well, I would not call them communists.
Yeah, but they're not acting like Marxists exactly. They're just they're acting well. They're acting. Let's be honest here. They're acting like what the nomenclatura and so forth did under really existing communism, as opposed to fairy tale imaginary communism, right? Which is that they would get into a privileged position in the system. They would be connected, right? And then they would have the nice vacation home and the good food that nobody else could get, right? And they have continued to live this life even under freedom, right?
And it actually ended with the biggest of them all actually becoming prime minister. So although their power went sort of underground, it was sort of bubbling up and up and up until they came to the official power again.
Right. And I'm sorry, this is the current one you're talking about?
Yes, this is our current prime minister.
And how do you say his last name? Babiš?
Andrej Babiš.
Andrej Babiš. Okay, so you're saying Babiš was actually a communist under the communist system?
He was member of the communist secret police. He constantly claims he's not, but court ruled that he's rightfully marked in the how you say it. We have basically these books that store all the names of the basically people who served in the secret police and stuff, because in theory they should not be able to hold office, but as we can see with this country, what is supposed to be theory really rarely meets practice.
Okay, sorry. One more thing that he's asked me to share, and it looks kind of fun. This is Jaromír Soukup, right? Talking to himself.
Yes.
Which I don't even know what that means, but he's interviewing himself somehow.
Well, he's full of himself. I would say that much. So even though this probably is a meme, I would not put it past him to actually do this and think it's serious.
Yeah. Anyway, okay, so let's hit the super chats and wrap it up. Thank you very much. The main point, though, I think, is that I mean, I don't know what your analysis is, but the themes I've been hearing as I've been learning about post-communist situations is that simply getting rid of communism doesn't mean that you instantly have a wonderful, free, and just and non-corrupt system, right? In fact, having had communism and the people who were in power under communism around, having that legacy means that it actually seems to be quite difficult to get past that. And these same people end up, you know, as you explained, using the power they had under communism and using it to negotiate their way, move their way into power in the new system, so that you don't really get rid of them. Right, exactly. You have the KGB agent as forever president or whatever, right? In Russia. Okay,
as we do more episodes on, you know, Eastern Europe over time, obviously we're not going to make a series of this, but as we do more of the Eastern European nations and we get more people on, I think this is going to be a recurring theme, that even though you get rid of communism in an official sense, the lasting legacies of communism still live on, and especially the people, because it's not like a hard reset.
And if we're talking about legacy of communism, probably the worst one is eradication of intellectuals. That's by far the worst one.
Really?
Yes, because all the intellectuals either go into the Communist Party and become political in the Communist Party, and therefore you do not really trust them. And that was a large problem after the communism fell, because where the hell do you take the people who actually know stuff, who actually know how to run things? Because they were either communists, so we were really sour on them, or they just don't exist because commies don't allow intellectuals to thrive. And for example, Václav Havel was one of the rather rare ones, because he was philosopher and critic of communism, but he was not intellectual that could run a country. So you don't really have options after that.
Right. Okay, so let's just cover a couple super chats real quick. Need to click that button. Okay, yeah, Jedi Knight Anakin Cringe Walker says, this episode is close to my heart. My Russian ancestors used Czech papers to get into America. The best fake things come from Czech Republic.
I mean, yes, yeah, that's about right. We fake a lot of stuff very well.
Oh, really? This is a theme?
Yeah, well,
forgery,
we are like no, it's not about forgery, but mimicking big brands and stuff, and trying to act as if we make them the same, and they're often really good, but it's not like we make that big of a fuss of property law and intellectual property and other stuff. So it's still sort of anarchy. Yes, and that's important part I forgot to say about our economy and describe this country. Small businessmen just don't pay taxes. I mean, they are supposed to pay taxes, but if we talk with basically any of my friends about this, do you think this guy pays taxes? No.
Okay,
I like
then next.
that attitude.
Yeah.
Of course. I'll just add one more thing. There's this saying in Czech, kdo nekrade, okrádá svoji rodinu, which in translation means who does not steal, steals from his family.
Yeah, right. Oh, I'm sorry. I also wanted to say something else, and I don't know how you feel about this personally, but it seems like one of the legacies, which I think has consequences, of being under communism, and I've been seeing some stats on this lately, is that the loss of belief in God is very real, and it doesn't just get healed because communism ends. There does, I mean, we'll see what it looks like in decades from now, right? But so far, 30 years after the end of the Soviet Union and all that, we still see that the peoples that were under communism are more atheistic.
Yes, but it's hard to say that in Czech Republic, because the Czechoslovak Republic interwar period was in some sense anti-clerical. It was a lot of largely Christian, but since the Catholic Church was associated with the Habsburgs, and the entire Czechoslovakia was basically antithesis to the Habsburgs, it really did not go together well, let's say.
Okay, did I read this one? No. BioGundam says, I have heard some nightmare stories from East Europe about this subject. Keep up the good work. Thank you, BioGundam. And then I get to highlight one. Yay, put it on the screen. Object of hate. Do Czech women aspire to have OnlyFans accounts like nihilist American women do?
This is interesting because I believe that Czech Republic has the largest amount of porn actresses per capita.
Wait, who does? Czech does?
Czech Republic has the largest. Czech women are the largest per capita.
Let's keep in mind, Czech Republic is not that massive of a population, right?
11 million.
11 million.
11 and a half.
Right, and you're saying they are doing more than their fair share of providing
adult entertainment.
I mean, we have beautiful women like who wouldn't make money off of that.
Right. Yeah, I'm seeing 22 estimate. The census was almost 10. It was 10 years ago now, but the 22 estimate is 10,700,000. So around that.
Oh no, not 11 and a half, 10 and a half around. Yes.
Yeah, almost 11.
Actually,
almost 11.
Actually, that's an interesting episode we could do, Redlib, the economics of the adult entertainment industry. I'm sure it would get a lot
episode.
of views. Yes, sure it'd get a lot of views.
Yeah, when we need the clicks, that's what we do.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
hey, we got another one here. Huskarl says, "What is Mickey's opinion on the march of the Czech legions? Also, a great stream as always. Radlib, love the content. Thank you. Czech legions. What does this mean?
Legionary legionnaires were in First World War basically Czechs who, although were under Austria-Hungary, fled to the Entente powers and fought for them. Largest of these were fleeing to Russia to fight for the Russians, and after the revolution that established Soviet Union, they were basically left stranded there, and did not want to fight for the communists, so they just went, because they could not go through the war front. They went the other way around. They traversed the entire Russian landscape, and by ship returned. I'm not sure what exactly is the way from Russia when they left the ship. I'm not sure through what they went. Maybe even through America, but I'm not sure. I really don't know. But I mean, what opinion can I have about them? I mean, about the march.
What is the march?
They screwed over Commies.
What is the march?
That's the march when they were stranded in the Soviet Union and traversed the entire Russia. So, I mean, what opinion can of that one can have of that aside from it being heroic?
Well, it sounds like they succeeded in leaving, as opposed to ending up in concentration camps. So that's pretty good.
Yes, yes. I mean, obvious success, and this was actually quite vital for the Czechoslovak state, as due to legions, we actually had established army. So that made it a lot easier to govern the thing that was sort of a hot mess, actually. You're
talking about the interwar years. Yeah. Madmark, you were saying?
Well, I mean, they killed communists. They fought for their country. They got to see a whole bunch of Russia. They, went around the world.
I'm not sure about the last point being
like
positive.
That's true, but I don't see anything wrong here. Killing communists. I mean, are they even people? I mean,
there's actually a great quote by one Polish mercenary who said something like, to question how it is to kill people. Well, I don't know. I killed only communists. So
yeah, right. I've heard.
I think that might be a legitimate argument to say that communists are not actually people, because if they believe in the collective, they give up their individual humanity. But maybe that's a.
Yeah, I agree. Valid point.
So thrilling to have you with us. I'm always curious about this for people in our circles. How did you find your way to this group of YouTubers? Was it academic agent or what?
You mean the entry point to this side of YouTube?
Yeah.
Jordan Peterson.
Oh, okay. So he radicalized you. He was the gateway.
Totally.
The gateway to radicalization.
He did a Petersonian rabbit hole that basically. Well, actually, I learned English by listening to his psychological lectures almost. So,
wow.
And I was fascinated by the take on psychology he has, and then I just started discovering people who were supportive of his stance against the Bill C-16, the speech legislation in Canada. And then I think there was like Sargon, academic agent somewhere along the line, and then basically you, an academic agent, made me love Austrian economics, and that's basically where I am now.
Okay,
and
thanks.
How
I thought it'd be fun to see what your story was. I did not ask ahead of time. I was just kind of curious. We have one more, I think. One of favorite pieces. This is the only other thing people outside of Czech know about Czech Republic. Scott Anderson says, defenestrate. Greatly. Defenestrate, for those who don't know, is when you execute someone by chucking them out of the window from a tall building. And I think there was a famous defenestration in Czech hundreds of years ago, right?
Two, actually. I'm not sure what was the second one, but or if it
Two
was the second
of
one.
them?
But
Okay.
well, yes, one of them basically caused the 30 Years' War. So, well, we may be slightly overreacted, and basically we went against the dukes or the lords of Prague, and basically then there became two myths. I'm not sure if I'm talking about the right defenestration. It's complicated when you have two such events. But in one of them, definitely, there became two myths, and one of them says that the pro-lords says that when they were thrown on, because they survived, they were carried down by angels that saved them. The other story is they survived because they dropped into a pile of shit.
Right. So somebody's objecting. Our Czech friend who's been chatting with me, he objects to considering Czech Republic to be in Eastern Europe. That's correct. I think usually we would consider Czech Republic to be Central Europe, right?
Yes, and considering how, in some sense, anti-European Union and anti-Russia, and overall the makeup of population on how much anti they are about everything, putting us to the east and to the west, both just feel wrong. So we like to be the heart of Europe.
With this nihilistic sort of tendency and high atheism, there's a lot of and the anti-authoritarianism. There's a lot of what you're not. Like from what I'm getting is that you're not this, you're not that. We reject this, But like, is there much of we are this? A bit more patriotism, bit more, because it kind of comes off that you have a lot of things that you say you're not. But is there more of a position that you hold in the affirmative?
That's actually quite a big problem, and I don't think there is any strong position that we have that we are holding in affirmative. Also, this comes down to our favorite national hobby is rewriting history of our country. So basically, when we are getting rid of the Habsburgs, there was this movement, national rejuvenation, and they lied a lot, like quite a lot, about a lot of stuff, forged documents, and basically wrote almost fictitious history. Oh, Madmark fell? Oh.
He's gone. Go ahead. Keep talking.
Well, we're rewriting it then. Now we're rewriting, then we were rewriting communism after communism. Then now we were rewriting our relationship with either Catholicism or Protestantism. We have this amazing argument over raising a monument that used to stand in one of the Prague's squares, and this monument had basically two sides supporting it, and from what I can understand, both were claiming historical arguments, and neither of them being even slightly historically accurate. So we're using history as a useful tool to push basically anything. So yes, so I don't think we have affirmative national identity aside from liking beer.
Okay, and then last thing, someone makes a point here that in terms of thinking about Czechia geographically, Prague is actually west of Vienna by quite a bit as I look at the map. So just to help you get rid of this idea that Czech Republic is in the east, it's actually, like Prague is kind of sort of south of Berlin, if you just, look at the line on the map that way, right? The longitude. So, it's central, westernish, maybe.
I mean, we literally call ourselves the heart of Europe.
Yeah, it's right in the middle there. Yeah. Okay, well, let's wrap up. I don't think we need to really shill anything. Just check the show description. learn economics. And thanks to Miki. Go ahead. What, Edmer?
Get on those alternate platforms. Make sure if you're going to continue to use YouTube, at least get NewPipe. And if you want to contribute to some of the designs because you want to support the show and buy a shirt or buy a mug or a jumper or whatever, I will be creating some more custom designs for our merch. So if you want to get involved in that, please use those tabs in the Discord. Okay.
All right. Thanks again, Miki, for volunteering to do this. It was very interesting. And as you can see from the article that I shared, it was a brief visit, but I really enjoyed visiting the Czech Republic. I wouldn't mind being there again. It's close to my place where my heart really lives in Europe, which is Salzburg, Austria. I love Salzburg.
Which, regarding what we discussed, is actually even more close to Czech Republic.
Yeah, Salzburg's even closer than Vienna.
No. I mean, regarding to what we discussed outside of this podcast, of this episode, about the school, about the grade.
I guess we won't get into that. We need to stop. But Miki is working on an article, and I need to edit it. But Miki's working on an article that is going to be of great interest to people who are Austrians. I did not know about this, and I bet you there's almost no other Austrians know about this, and it's really, really interesting intellectual history and also some personal history, you could say, right? So there's a story that it needs to be told, and we are hoping, can't guarantee this, but hoping to get this up on Mises.org, and if we do, I will definitely be sharing that on the show and pointing you all to it. So,
if I could just react to comments I see in the chat. First of all, I really want to shout out the great formulation of sounds like Czechia is what happens when consensus meets a black hole.
when what meets a black hole? I didn't see that.
Consensus.
Consensus meets a black hole. Okay, here I've got it. There we go. There's the comment.
It just sounds funny and somewhat accurate. And someone asking if I have a YouTube channel. I actually don't, but if I will have one, and I'm not ruling it out that I will talk about something of my interest, I actually planned it before. I will definitely post it to Discord if people are interested. But as of now, I don't have any social media nor channel that I could share.
All right. Well, thanks again, Miki. And thanks, everybody. Lots of kind comments right at the end here that people really enjoyed this. So thanks for your preparation, Miki, and for taking time to do this with us. All right. Bye, everybody. See you next week.